I am Lexi's Mrs. D. Uh, I've been a teacher for 40 years, and I moved to Orange County in 1986. So I've been here 35 years, originally from the Bronx, which was my first beloved home. And and I pride myself very much on my wonderful marriage, my wonderful 40-year marriage, great kids, two great children, and I think hundreds of great students through the years, and the communities that I've enjoyed serving during my adult life. While I was growing up, I had great teachers, and my mom was a teacher also. So, growing up in an area where where it wasn't really safe all the time to go outside to play, school was the one thing that I did right, that I was able to participate in. So I saw my teachers as these great heroes, because they were my outdoors, right? So my social life was really in the classroom, and then with my sisters and brother when I got back home. So that's my motivation. My first inspirations were the teachers that I grew up with, in St. Anselm School and then Cardinal Spellman High School. I had great teachers in college. And when I moved to Orange County, I was able to work with magnificent teachers from what is now the Inspire Center. It was then the Janet Lockwood School. And they were all ladies. They were absolutely magnificent. And the Otisville School, where, so I was continually motivated and inspired by great teachers and great people who worked with children, and who I feel taught me how to be. Well, being that my upbringing was mostly at home, of course, a very strong, disciplined mother who towed the line was a great influence. And I actually got to see her in the classroom also. And she was a person who could get discussion going in the classroom. And it was so funny because we worked in the same school for 6 years, and I would get the students that she had the previous year. She taught 5th grade and I taught 6th grade at the time. So I got the benefit of students who already had that stirring in them, that what they thought might matter. Mm-hmm. And I was able to take off on that. And even when I started teaching 3rd grade, which is considerably younger, those 3 years, they're quite a difference. I was moved by how, by the energy of that age also. Mm-hmm. And if I inspired them, it was only because they inspired me first. I relied a lot on current and classic children's literature. Mm-hmm. And when I would always pick, maybe you remember this, okay, a little, I always chose literature that taught a lesson, that had a lesson, mm-hmm. and that represented all kinds of children and all kinds of ideas. Because I knew that as an Hispanic girl growing up, that there were really not any stories that represented me. I didn't realize how much that affected me until I tried to find stories that in my class, I wanted to try to find stories so that my children would know that there are all kinds of children. And that basically not to point out that they were different, but to point out that they were the same. So your main characters, no matter what they looked like, there was a commonality, right? And it took a lot of doing, because it took a lot of effort, because there wasn't a lot out there at the time when I started teaching. But I always tried to pick thought-inspiring literature that would help students see outside the box, and that they're part of something bigger than what we have here, that these four walls are like a launching pad, and that there's a whole big world out there with all kinds of people, and that your talents can serve wherever you are. My mother always told me to bloom where you are planted. So I tried to, and with all the plants in the class and all that, I always tried to instill that whatever your talent is, whoever you are, that wherever you go, because that's ultimately the goal of education, so that wherever you end up, wherever life takes you, you do have something to offer. And that we have to try to do that unafraid. Of course, you never know. You have a class for 10 months and then off into the world they go. And even when I retired to take care of my mother and I started teaching at SUNY Orange, English as a second language class, you have them even shorter. You have them for 14 weeks, 12 weeks if it's the summer course. So, even then I tried to expose them and introduce them to parts of the United States history that they may not know of, so that they can be aware, to make them curious. I've been raised, and I have always tried to make service a part of my regular life. Okay, not just, I'm lucky enough to be in a profession where service and profession go hand in hand. But even as a person outside the classroom, if I'm not teaching, to be able to find your place in your community, serving somehow, gives you the opportunity to not only to meet people in your community, but to have them meet you. Okay. The trip that the trip that our class took to Meals on Wheels, the year that you were in 5th grade, is an example of how I try to get the class to see that there's a bigger world that needs you. And I really took that opportunity of my own volunteer work and shared it with you, so that you can find, not just so that, I was always into food ministries because I love to cook. But not everybody, that everybody has their own way. And even on that day, some of you were singing, some of you were planting, some of you were playing games with the seniors, and that everybody has their own gift to give. And I think that if those opportunities were available, I know that in the pandemic, it's so hard. That's been my way of trying to find a place in my community, and perhaps any misperceptions as far as culture, hopefully erased, because we're all in this together. Oh, for young people, health, first of all, opportunity to be themselves and to not hide.
Mhm.
because I did grow up with the thinking with my elder, I was the first, the first in my family of my generation to graduate from college. So to be out there, so there was a lot of pressure from my elders that I represent, that wherever I go, I represent my family, I represent my neighborhood, I represent my people, and that there was this burden of race and burden of class,
Mhm.
that if I misstep, that a whole group of people can have a totally erroneous idea of everything that I'm from. So I guess what I wish for young people is that we all give each other enough of a chance to have that burden lifted a little bit,
Mhm.
because it's something that I feel that I even, I'm 63 years old, and in many ways, when I'm in a new situation, I feel um, the weight of that still. And I would think that as you grow up, it prevents you a little bit from being yourself.
Mhm.
Um, I haven't, I try not to explore that too much because I like the way that my life has turned out. So if you like the way that your life has turned out, then you have to be grateful for it,
Mhm.
how it rolled out, and you can't change the past. But for young people, anyone who um, anyone who does feel different, or who is the first one or the first ones in some respect, um, I would wish that the world lighten their burden.